So recently, I was speaking to a friend who had just switched jobs. For a little bit of context, she had worked earlier as a data scientist at a FANG company, but then she decided to give up that job so that she could take on more responsibility and grow her career in a mature startup. Off the face of it, she wasn't getting a massive rise in her base pay, but when she started talking about the other compensation that she was getting, I was left starstruck. Without talking any numbers, she was on an ESOP plan that would see her earn 2 times her base salary each year if the startup IPO'd.
I'll take it. Hold on. Did you even read this before signing it?
No.
You're hired. We'll work on that.
So that basically got me thinking, ESOPs are such a massive part of how companies compensate their employees. But if they're so big, do we really know how they work or for what purpose companies utilize them? Hey there friends, welcome back to the channel. It's Rahul here. If you're new to the channel, a big welcome to the FilterCoffeeFinance family. Today's video is all about employee stock ownership plans, more commonly known as ESOPs. To understand what we mean by ESOPs, we need to first understand what an option is. If you already know what an option is, you can skip ahead to this timestamp. So, what are options? Instead of telling you, let me actually show you. This is my mobile phone, the OnePlus 8T. I've had it for about 3 years now, and I think it's a pretty solid device. I bought this phone back in 2021 for a price of, 41,231. I had better have gotten some kind of discount when I bought this phone. Along with buying this phone, I had also done something else. What I had done at that point is I had gone to my neighborhood phone dealer and I promised him that in 3 years I'd come back to him to sell him the phone. And I asked him, how much would he offer me if I did come back? My neighborhood phone dealer, who was also my friend, came back and said, you know what, if you come back to me in 3 years with this phone, I will pay you $15,999 to take it off your hands. And you can go ahead and upgrade to whatever phone you want. So we were both very happy with the transaction. We signed the deal and I walked away. And now the 3-year period is coming to an end. What I basically done at that point was that I had signed an option. An option to sell my phone in 3 years. That's basically what options are. The option to buy or to sell anything at a fixed price at a future date. Just like how at the 3-year mark, I had the option to sell my mobile phone, startups and even mature companies offer their employees the option to buy company stock at a fixed price some point in the future. Covering options now helps us segue into the next part of our video. Employee stock ownership plans or ESOPs are the stocks of a company issued to the employees of the company. They're not issued to the founders, investors and executive management of the company, but other employees get them. For all purposes, the value of both stocks are the same, but there is a small difference. But why does there need to be a difference? I mean, like if I'm an employee or a founder, why does there need to be a difference in the shares that I own? Well, there's a really simple explanation to this. For all purposes, the value of both shares is the same, but there's a small difference in the rights that each shareholder might have. So you may ask, why does a difference like this come up? Founders or first employees, they both need to own shares and they both should be rewarded equally, right? Founders take part in the day-to-day management of the company, and hence they are needed when taking important decisions during board meetings. The shares given to founders come with voting rights, and hence they're called preferred shares or Class A shares. Whereas employees do not take part in the day-to-day management of the company. Therefore, the shares allotted to employees through their ESOPs do not come with voting rights. So the next question that you may have is, where do ESOP shares come from and how are they granted to employees? When a new company is in the startup phase, the management will actually need to create a split in the share ownership and create a structure that is known as the ESOP pool. The ESOP pool is actually the pool of shares of the company that is specifically reserved for new employees. As employees join the company, the shares in the ESOP pool get exhausted and promoters will need to dilute their stake to give shares to future employees. If you want to learn more about how shares are diluted, I came across a really simple video on YouTube from a channel called 50 Folds. I suggest that you check it out if you're interested. The link is in the description. Once a company has finally set up its ESOP pool, it doesn't just go about handing out shares to employees. Because if they did, then everyone would be making money right from day zero. Instead, companies follow something that is known as the vesting period. The vesting period in an ESOP is the period from the date of issue of the ESOP, after which employees of the company can get access to their stock options. Typically, ESOPs have a vesting period of 1 year, although they can go up all the way up to 5 years as well. To understand how the vesting period works a little more clearly, let's talk through a simple example. Let's just say that you started working as a developer in a new startup. The startup founders have offered you 100 shares in the company at a strike price of 50, and they have a 3-year vesting period. See, for example, at the end of the 3-year period, the company's share price is Rs 80. The technical term for such an example is that the option is in the money, which means that you can buy company shares for Rs 50, but sell them back in the market at 80 and you instantly make a 30 rupee profit. So at the end of the vesting period, you can choose to exercise your right to purchase these shares at a much lower cost. Let's talk about another example. Say that the company's share price is currently at 25 rupees. Would you choose to exercise your option? Remember, in your ESOPs, you have the option to buy the share for 50 rupees a share. But it wouldn't make sense, right? Because there's no point in buying something for a higher price when you can buy it off the market for a much lower price. In such a case, employees of the company need to wait for the share price of the company to go above the strike price. It is only then that exercising the option actually makes sense. So now that we understand what the vesting period of ESOPs are, we need to talk about why do companies even use these tools? What is the purpose of using ESOPs? So when we're talking about why companies offer ESOPs, there are two different types of companies that we need to keep in mind: startups and mature companies. In a startup, there are three main reasons for them to offer ESOPs to their employees. Number one is forming the core team. A sole founder can be thought of as the lone wolf at times. But as time progresses, even the lone wolf does need a pack. Today, businesses are built on the success of multiple teams working together. To make this happen, a startup requires leaders, employees who believe in the founder's vision and push towards it. Founders tend to award ESOPs to employees who push the company forward and incentivize them to stay for the long run. Number two, ESOPs are also used to incentivize top performance. Top employees need to know that their performance is valued, and ESOPs are a way to show them this value and encourage them to stay loyal. Number three, instilling a sense of ownership in the employees. The sooner a startup creates a committed workforce, the faster it can create a solution that it can sell to the whole world. In order to build a committed workforce, employees need to look at the company as their own, and ESOPs are a way to create ownership for the employee in the company. This kind of thing is somewhat the same even for mature companies. ESOPs offered with longer term vesting periods help mature companies retain senior management for more time, and it also ties the interest of the senior management to the overall performance of the company. If the company does perform well, then the stock price will increase in value. And if the company's stock price increases, so does the value of the company's options. So far, we've created a really rosy picture of stock options. But what are the risks of ESOPs? There are two perspectives where we can examine this risk. On the one hand, we can look at the risk for the company that's offering the ESOPs, and on the other hand, we can look at the risk for the employee who's accepting these ESOPs. For the company, if you give ESOPs to the wrong person, maybe an employee who doesn't provide you with the right amount of value, then you're losing out on a lot, especially if the company does make it big, and you'll be paying a very high price for a very poor employee. Secondly, implementing an ESOP plan will just increase the amount of compliance work that your company will need to do. Hence, the costs and the expense of running the company will go up. For the employee, however, the risks of owning ESOPs are even more real. As we've discussed earlier, the value of an ESOP is directly tied to the valuation of the company. Another problem could be maybe the company never really shuts down. But what if the share price of the company never goes above the strike price that's offered to you? What will you do in that situation? These are the kind of risks that employers and employees need to understand and examine before they get into such agreements. So, as you can see, there is clearly a big reason why employees and employers need to be extremely careful when handing out ESOPs. Neither party will want to give more than they're getting. So how is this done? Let's head back to the vesting period. As we mentioned earlier, most companies don't just give their employees stock options. Employees need to earn these options. For most VC or venture capital backed firms, there is a typical 4-year vesting schedule with a 1-year cliff that is used. This is the terminology. Cliff periods are periods where employees do not receive any shares. So a 1-year cliff in a 4-year plan means that employees aren't entitled to any shares until their first anniversary with the company. This is done to ensure that an employee stays on board for at least a full calendar year. At the end of 1 year, you'll end up owning or vesting 25% of the ESOPs that are given to you. However, if you leave your job, for example, say 10 months after your joining date, then all the shares that you may have earned in 1 year period are forfeited. In fact, you get nothing. Using this kind of vesting schedule helps startup founders maintain investments and retail talents. Cliffs are in a sense a security measure for companies. Giving employees access to ESOPs right away when they join your company could be extremely dangerous. People could be hired, exercise their options, and then leave the company before even contributing to the business. This is why something like a vesting schedule is extremely important. And with that, we come to the end of this week's video on FilterCoffeeFinance. Here's a quick 30-second summary of everything we discussed. ESOPs are options that allow employees to buy discounted shares at a future date. No, they do not come with voting rights. In order to earn ESOPs, an employee needs to allow the shares to vest. Having a vesting period ensures that companies can retain top talent for a longer period. and this allows the company to focus on long-term targets instead of constantly losing employees. Hey guys, so I hope that you enjoyed this week's video on Filter Coffee Finance. I'm not gonna lie, but before I started researching about ESOPs, there were so many things I was not really clear about conceptually. And it was such a great experience to clear all of that up. My goal was to make this video as concise as possible. That's why we didn't get into certain topics like how ESOPs are taxed or how employees dilute their stake to maintain the ESOP pool. In the description, I've attached links to videos of creators who I believe have done an exceptional job in explaining the topic. If that is something that you're interested in, you can check out these videos as well. And yeah, you know everything that you need to know about ESOPs. Thanks for watching, guys. And until we meet again, this is FilterCoffeeFinance signing off.